बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी। अस्सलामु अलैकुम बच्चों, उम्मीद है आप सब खैरियत से और सेहतमंद होंगे। Today I am going to deliver the last lecture of first chapter, Arabia before Islam. We study the geographical, social, religious, economical and political condition of Arabia before Islam. Now we will study in this lecture the cultural and educational condition of Arabia. इसके बाद आपका चैप्टर ये ख़त्म हो जाएगा। इस चैप्टर को बच्चों मैंने मेन टॉपिक्स के हवाले से अहम इम्पॉर्टेंट जो पॉइंट्स हैं वो उनकी स्लाइड्स बनाई हुई हैं पिछले तमाम लेक्चर्स में। आप उनको गौर से पढ़िएगा और उसके इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स को नोट कीजिएगा, शॉर्ट क्वेश्चन के तौर पर या एमसीक्यूज़ के तौर पर। इसके अलावा अगर आपको कोई और पॉइंट समझ में नहीं आता तो आप ग्रुप में, जो व्हाट्सएप का ग्रुप है हमारा, उसे मुझसे पूछ सकते हैं। इस चैप्टर की जो अप्रोच है वो ज़्यादातर ऑब्जेक्टिव होगी, जो कि शॉर्ट क्वेश्चन और एमसीक्यूज़ की सूरत में होगी। नाउ लेट्स स्टार्ट आवर lecture. In the desert life, where people experienced harsh conditions in vast lands, Arabian society found itself in a very different field composed of poetry and oration. This was their way of resisting the hardships of life and became very significant in uniting a society that was continuously on the move from one place to another. Arabic poetry had many themes like love, wine, battle, victory, bravery, hatred against the enemy, hunting, nature, tribal virtues. It came in some way to mirror Bedouin life. The two-way trade between Southern Arabia and Middle East, and between Mediterranean countries and the Far East. A number of markets and fairs opened in pre-Islamic Arabia. These fairs had an important effect not only on the regeneration of the Arabian Arabian social structure, but also on shaping a certain cultural environment in the region. The literacy rate was very low in the Arabian Peninsula. The oral poems were written down only at a very late period. For many centuries, the poems were memorized and were passed from one generation to another, bringing them down to the Islamic period. Although the literacy rate was low, it can be said that the Arabs had a strong verbal accumulation in certain fields to which they had transferred their knowledge and experiences. Genealogy, a historical tradition mixed with legends, predictions based on the water and climatic condition, about personal health or the health of their animal and trekking skill, can be counted among the sciences of the age of ignorance. Among the Arabs, there were extremely few individuals who could read or write. Most of them were not very eager to learn these arts. Some historians are of the opinion that the culture of the period was almost entirely oral. The Jews and the Christians were the custodians of such knowledge as Arabia had. The greatest intellectual accomplishment of the pagan Arabs was their poetry. They claimed that God had bestowed the most remarkable qualities of the head upon the Greeks. Its proof is their science and philosophy. Of hand upon the Chinese, its proof is their craftsmanship. And of the tongue upon the Arabs, its proof is their eloquence. Their greatest pride, both before and after Islam, was their eloquence in poetry. The importance of poetry to them can be judged by the following testimony. In nomad Arabia, the poets were part of the war equipment of the tribe. They defended their own and damaged hostile tribes by the employment of a force which was supposed indeed to work mysteriously, but which in fact consisted in composing phrases of a sort that would attract notice and would consequently be diffused and remembered widely. As you know that the nomadic Arabs were ever mobile and raided their neighbors so much, Arabia spoke a fairly uniform language. It is said that the ancient Arabs loved three things the most. First, his language. Second one is his camel. And third, his clan. The Arabs considered eloquence of speech, masterful archery, and skilled horsemanship the basic attributes of a perfect man. Orators and poets were patronized during a war, and when preparations were beginning for a new one. Rawis recited poems, qasidas means odes, and other type of poetry. Arabic poetry was rich in eloquence and imagery, but it was limited in range and was lacking in profundity. After, with the rise of Islam, the emphasis shifted temporarily from poetry to prose, and poetry lost its prestigious position as the queen of the arts of Arabia. Islam, in fact, students, was the greatest blessing not only for Arabia but for mankind ever. Before Islam, the Arabs had played only a marginal role in the history of the Middle East, and they would have remained forever a nation of animists and shepherds if Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had not provided them the focus and the stimulus that welded their scattered nomadic tribes into a purposeful driving force. He molded a nation out of a rough mass without basic structure. He invested the Arabs with the new dynamisms, idealism, and explosive creativity, and they changed the course of history. He created an entirely new mental and psychological ecology, and his work placed an emphatic period in world history. It was the end of one era and the beginning of another. Writing about this watershed in history, Francesco Giobrelli, a distinguished Italian Arabist, says in his book The Arabs, A Compact History, thus terminated the pagan prelude in the history of the Arabian people. Whoever compares it with what followed, which gave the Arabs primary role on the stage of the world and inspired high thoughts and high works, not only to an exceptional man emerged from their bosom, but to an entire elite which for several generations gathered and promoted his work, cannot but notice the lead that the destinies of his people assume here. The rhythm of its life until then, weak and dispersed, was to find a unity, a propulsive center, a goal, and all this under the sign of religious faith. No romantic love for the primitive can make us fail to recognize that without Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Islam, they would have probably remained vegetating for centuries in the desert, destroying themselves in the bloodletting wars. Now it's all complete. Your first chapter, pre-Islamic Arabia or Arabia before Islam, its political, social, religious, geographical and cultural condition, I discussed the all aspects of the Arabian life. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.